Are you old enough to remember these flip cameras by Cisco? This is the USB. There's different versions. This one's an ultra flip. And then here's one by Kodak, the Play Touch. There's different versions of the Play Touch. This one was the touch screen here. I'm not going to do a video on these cameras, but the seems to be the modern day equivalent to these are phones. But then Canon releases the V10. I used to own, and liked a different version of this, which was the Canon Mini. There was a Canon Mini and Canon Mini X, which I really liked. I liked that form factor. They discontinued it. They never updated that product. And this one right here, the V10, it looks like some variation of it going to the vloggers, but that's the idea of it, just like these flip cameras. I already unboxed it. Here's what it looks like. It's very tiny. Size comparison, here's a GoPro 12. And it looks bigger, but if you go side by side like this, it's actually not that much bigger. And then here is a Action 4, DJI Action 4 with a small rig case. One of my favorite cases for the Action 4 right here. And when you put the case on, it's quite bulky. And when you compare it to the V10, it looks like it's what's thicker, and it's almost as big, not as long. But the size is small. Here's again comparison to a flip, the old school flip. Here's a Samsung S23 Ultra, one of the bigger phones. Quite big compared to the V10. The reason why I got the V10 was not for vlogging. I do not vlog. Well, I do videos like this, but I don't vlog. So this whole flippy thing screen is nice, but I don't use it like that. I was in a situation where I was filming an event inside of a small room in a house, and I just needed another camera angle to get multicam. And I was already using my GoPro and my other action cams, but the action cams, they weren't really good in low light. I was indoors. They were okay, but I didn't have a lot of light inside, and the GoPros and the action cameras, they're not good in low light. If I had a DJI Pocket 3, the one that just came out, I probably would have used that because it has a 1-inch sensor. This one fit the bill. This was also cheaper. This, I believe, right now is around $400 US. I think it's usually $430, and it checks off a lot of boxes that I was looking for my situation. Even though it says it's meant for vloggers, this does not have image stabilization. It has electronic image stabilization, which is okay, but it crops in to the 19mm focal length. It crops in, and the electronic stabilization is not nearly as good as a GoPro or a phone. The iPhone, the Samsung, this one has great image stabilization. So the image stabilization on here is not great. For vloggers walking around with this, not good. But they designed this, I believe the purpose is more for just setting it up on a stand, because it has a 1/4-20 here that you can screw in a tripod mount, or just putting it on a desk like this. It has a stand built in. You do like that. You set it up that way at a little angle, and you look up at it, and it's almost like your webcam. I wouldn't use it like this, but you can. So there's a ease of use to use it that way. But one of the reasons why I got it was that it is 4K. There was manual exposure control, and it's a fairly reasonable bit rate. So the footage is decent. It has a micro SD card slot over there. The battery is internal. There's an internal battery, which is maybe the one thing I don't like about this camera, aside from the image stabilization, is the lack of external batteries. I wish, like these flip cameras, these had batteries. There was another one where it takes both the proprietary batteries from the flip, and then also you can use, I think, just regular like AA's. See the Flip Ultra here. Yeah, it had its own proprietary, and then you can also just pop in 2 AA batteries. So you'll never run out of batteries. These still operate. I don't have to worry about the internal battery dying. like I am going to be worrying with the V10. Eventually, the internal battery is going to wear down. You can plug this in with USB-C into a power bank and run it more continuously. Eventually, when the internal battery dies, I might have to just do that if I even keep it that long. So the internal battery, don't like it, but it lasts a little over an hour. So I was using this for this event, and I screwed it into a mount, and I just had it off to the side. There's a digital zoom, but it messes up the image quality. So I just kept it at its widest focal length. Since I wasn't hand holding it, I could keep it at the 19 millimeters, and I wanted it wide. I wanted a wide angle. And because it's a 1-inch sensor, I think it's an f2.8. Yeah, it is an f2.8, and the ISO can be about 1600, but I think I kept it at 800. And it was decent in low light. And it has autofocus, tracking autofocus. The autofocus isn't as good as Canon DSLR mirrorless cameras or their Vixia line, but it's not that bad. So let me turn this on and show you how the manual exposure works and just the overall menu system, because it doesn't have many options. So it's a one click. You just hit it once and it's on. Here's what you get. It's a touch screen, but you also have some buttons here to press, and you could control some of these buttons to program them for some custom settings. But here's what you get. I have it right now on manual, and the way it's on manual is there's 4 icons here, and this gets you into the different modes. Hit it again. The one with the M is manual. This one is on auto. This one all the way over here. This one is like a skin smoothing. I guess that's made specifically for vloggers. And then this one right here is auto, but this has the image stabilization, the electronic image stabilization. But I kept it on manual. Oops. I like it manual. And then the way you control the manual settings is that you have to do it with this button, touchscreen. And then here's where you have your exposure settings. You have your shutter, and you can lock it off at 150. I hit it again. Go over to the f-stop, and f2.8 is as high as it goes, and it goes all the way down to an f8. And then you can do your ISO here. ISO up all the way up to 1600, or at least that's how I programmed it. I think it can go higher, and it goes down to 125. I can use with the touchscreen now. Go that way. Hit out touchscreen. Turn down the iris. Do it that way. If you want to change the white balance, you have to go into the menu system. So you go to the menu here. And in the menu system, go into the camera icon, and then page 2, here's where the white balance is, and you can change the white balance with that button. And those are your white balance. But I keep it at daylight. Here there's an ND filter. You can turn on an ND filter. And I don't know how many stops of ND, but you only get one setting. Turn that off. And let's go through the menu. So the first one, that controls all of the manual settings or automatic. And then here's the record modes. Here are all the options you get for codecs and frame rates. That's 4K. And then you get light and standard. But once you go to standard, the bit rate's pretty high, because see how I'm going to light. Light is 55 minutes left, but then when I go to the standard IPB, I only get 28 minutes. I go from 56 to 28, so the bit rate's quite high. But those are your options. I'm shooting at that one for right now. Then sound recording auto. This does have a mic jack, not a headphone jack, but it does have a mic jack, and it looks like you can dial in. If you go to manual, you can control the levels, which is good. But I'll leave it at auto, menu, ISO speed settings, ND filter, we already talked about that. Self-timer, autofocus. Oh yeah, so the autofocus method, face tracking, they have face tracking, and then they have just the regular center one. Hit OK. And then some other markers, grid displays, HDMI output. It is a full, I think it's just HD, not 4K output. And you can do, I might be wrong about that. Somebody please correct me if I'm wrong with the output from the micro HDMI. I think it's just HD, and it's I think it's uncompressed, and I think it's clean. It's a clean HDMI signal. So if you're trying to live stream, one method of live streaming is you plug the HDMI into a cam link or another in-out device into your computer, and then you get a clean signal to get the highest resolution. Another way is to go USB-C, and when you plug this into your computer, there's a setting here where you can switch over to either read the SD card, or this can become a webcam. And the webcam is not just for the video, it can also do the audio. So you can use the built-in internal mics here, or you can use the 3.5, plug that in, and have that microphone audio. I just tested it on Zoom, and it works fine on Zoom. If you use Zoom, then you can connect it USB-C to your computer. I have a Mac, and it worked great. It's very low latency for a device like this. It's almost like just a regular web camera, USB web camera. Low latency, and you can not really do the manual settings anymore. At least with Zoom, once you plug this in and it becomes a webcam, most of it's all on auto, unless you go through the HDMI. And when you do the HDMI, then you can probably control manual settings, the exposure settings. So that's the main menu. And then it just goes, this menu here is for the USB settings, or it can also do wireless and Bluetooth. I think with that, it's just to put over, do remote control with an app. All the Canon cameras can do that. I don't really use it much, so I'm not going to really demonstrate that. And then you have the regular wrench menu with all your settings here. Cool. So this was pretty good setup for me. I'm going to do some test footage now just to show you what this looks like in daylight using the ND filter. I'll show some image stabilization on and off, and then I'll do some low light. Okay, here I'm outside. This is all on auto, but I have it at 24p, 4K. Everything's on auto. There's no image stabilization on here. I have not turned on the ND filter either. I'm trying to hold it as steady as possible. And I'm gonna go to the image stabilization next. Okay, now I have the electronic image stabilization on. Everything else is on auto. And you might not have noticed this, but it has punched in a little bit, because when you're on electronic image stabilization, it does punch in from a 19 millimeters. Ooh, I think it might go to a 22. Don't quote me on that though. But it does punch in. Now let's see how cinematic this could be by going all manual and turning on the ND filter. Okay, now I'm in all manual mode except for audio. Audio is on automatic. I'm exposing for the bright spot of the sun so I can get those shadows right now. You can adjust the exposure settings in camera. You can't do the white balance, but you can do the ISO, the f-stop, and the shutter speed if you wanted to change it while you're recording. The image stabilization isn't on, so it might be a little shaky, but this is what it looks like. Just to prove that you can adjust the exposure settings while you're recording, I am going to adjust the exposure settings. Let's start with the iris. I'm opening up now to a 2.8. And now I'm going to go to my ISO and bring that up. Now I'm at a 320 ISO. I don't even need my ND filter. I have the ND filter enabled, but I'm going to disable it now. Oh no, I can't disable it while I'm recording. Just like the white balance. Alright, I'm going to have to stop the camera and then turn off the ND filter. Okay, now the ND filter is disabled. I'm at f2.8, 1/50th shutter speed, 125 ISO. I'm a little shaky right now, but I'm trying to hold this as steady as possible. It hits autofocus is on. Let's see what the close focusing distance is. Pretty close. Now this is pretty low light, pretty dark right now. I'm shooting a color chart. I'm at ISO 1600 and it's a 1/50th shutter speed and a f2.8, which is the widest it opens up for the aperture. And it's 4K. I'm shooting at the highest bit rate. The highest bit rate and then the highest resolution for this camera. Now I'm shooting in complete auto. Everything's in auto. I haven't really moved the camera from the previous shot. And it's still 4K, shooting at the highest bit rate, 24p, but the exposure settings are on auto. And you can see here, it might be grainier. And I'm not sure, I can't tell how the camera is adjusting the exposure. I'm not sure if it's increasing the ISO or lowering the shutter or both. But this is a pretty dark room right now. It's dark in here. And you can see it's getting this color chart pretty well. I think the colors are good Canon colors.